Hey, my friends, Derek here from Bomb Socks, back with another week of Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ, and we do it one bite at a time. So last week we focused on the Holy Week of Easter, had a wonderful time with that. Now we are back to the Old Testament, where we're studying Exodus chapter 18 through 20. So when we last left off the children of Israel, they're over on the other side of the Red Sea. They've moved forward. They're in the wilderness. They've had to deal with no food. They've had to deal with no water. And just that whole idea of murmuring, trying to figure out how to navigate through this craziness. So now you get into chapter 18. So now Moses is living with his wife's family at the time. He's got his father-in-law Jethro. They're helping out with all of this. So the people are starting to come to Moses like crazy. They're seeing him and they're just like, Moses is the prophet. Moses can help us with all of our problems. And so I'm trying to picture this as just Moses just sitting there while the people are just standing in line, coming to him with all of these problems. Now, his father-in-law Jethro recognizes this. So here's where you get to chapter 18. You go to verse 13. It says, "And it came to pass that on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood by Moses from the morning unto the evening." So the people stood by Moses just waiting for him to solve all their problems rather than teaching them just kind of broadly how to do that. Verse 14, "And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning unto even?" You know, Jethro is Moses' father-in-law, and he may have wondered why he was sitting there with all of the people and not spending enough time with his family. So maybe he was speaking as a father-in-law. It's like, hey, Moses, you're with the people way too much. You need to be with your family as well. That's the challenge of any time you're a leader in the church in any capacity. It's that balance of what do I spend with my family? What do I spend with my calling? And so forth. Verse 15, "And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people come unto me to inquire of God. And when they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one another. And I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws." And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, "The thing which thou doest is not good, because," verse 18, "thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee. For this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone." So I remember, and this is a real thing, if you've ever been called upon to serve in the church, you feel the mantle, you feel the weight of that responsibility. I remember serving as a bishop, and it was our first week that we were called as a bishopric. I remember being sustained on a Sunday, and I am sitting there in a meeting later that day because we decided to have our first meeting, and I'm sitting there with myself, my counselors, and my clerks, and my executive secretary. And so we had an opening prayer, and then everybody turned and just looked at me, and I'm just like, "What's up?" Because I'd never served in a bishopric before, so this was a new experience for me. And so I'm just kind of like, okay. And all of a sudden, one of my counselors said, "Hey, we've got tithing settlement coming up." And all of a sudden, I'm like, "Oh yeah," and I'm feeling this weight coming down. And another one said, "Well, we need to make sure we have all these callings." I'm like, "Oh, that's right." And my other counselor said, "Yeah, we need to get set up as a scouting organization, a scouting charter." I'm like, "How do you do that? I didn't even know that was a thing." And so this weight started just becoming greater and greater. But then I started realizing, I started looking around at these people, and I think my executive secretary, who was so valuable to me at the time, I remember he looked at me and he said, "Hey, so do you want me to maybe start calling some people and getting some appointments set up for tithing settlement?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome, thanks." And my counselor said, "Hey, I go by the scouting office every single day after work. How about if I go there and just get this taken care of?" And then I started seeing this weight and feeling this weight start to get distributed to others. Because if you are not careful, there's a lot of stuff you can start taking on yourselves. In fact, I started making a list here, and you can kind of see this list of what a bishop could deal with on a weekly basis. So I just put this little list together. You've just been called as a bishop of the ward. It's your Sunday meeting, and here's the list of the things that are happening. How would you plan out your week? You know, you've got everything here. The Relief Society met with the James family whose dad is out of work, and they need some food and payment for their house and car. The library is out of paper, needs some more. There's no bread for the sacrament. The Elders Quorum's having a party, and they want to know how much money they have to spend and whether they should do chicken or ham. The Jensen family needs temple recommends before Wednesday before a wedding. Carol and her boyfriend Steve stopped to see you and they need to talk to you now. The stake just called for a meeting on Thursday about the FSY program. Your ministers want to come by Thursday and see your family. Your little girl in nursery has a dirty diaper. The heater in the relief study room isn't working. Sister Jones is in the hospital, needs a blessing before her surgery. There's so many different things here, and you can see how this could just weigh a person down. But again, this idea of delegation is such a beautiful thing. So what does Moses do? He takes the advice of his father-in-law. So Moses starts sharing this with other people. In fact, verse 22 says, "Let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. If thou shalt do this thing, and God command thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure, and all this people shall also go to their place in peace." So what does Moses do? Verse 25, he chose able men out of all Israel and made them heads over people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, and rulers of 10s. They judged the people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought unto Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. So I have a very strong testimony of the idea of delegation, because what you're doing whenever you're in a church calling, I really believe that you are training future people to replace you. I believe that's 100%. You're called as a stake president, a bishop, relief society president, whatever it is. You are trying to find people to replace you, which I really believe is one of the greatest principles of leadership. In fact, I was watching a leadership thing for church employees. Elder Bednar talked about leadership a few years ago, and he talked about an interesting experience here where the question was asked to him about leadership and how you properly delegate. And he shared this little story. He said, just a silly illustration, Sister Bednar and I have 3 sons. I like to have a yard that looks nice, so I was fairly meticulous about how you mow the lawn. And I was famous in our neighborhood for the neatness of the trimming around the lawn. I mean, people would come to our neighborhood, "How do you do that?" They would come and ask me for lessons on how to do this. So one day I began teaching one of our sons how to do this, and he just totally messed it up. And now I know none of you have done this, but my first instinct was to take the weed eater away from him because I didn't want him to mess it up. And there came one of these kind of amazing moments where you go, so let me make sure I understand this. Not messing up the trimming around the lawn is more important than helping your son learn this lesson. So he just totally obliterated the edges of the lawn. And you know what? It grows back, and it's not a big deal. And he did it the second time, and it was bad, if not worse than the first time. And each time it was horrible, but it got a little better. And the long run outcome was I didn't trim the lawn anymore. And he did it as well as I did. You have to take some inevitable hits on the front end, and you're invested in that, and it's kind of painful. And what was really cool is that when he learned how to do it, his brother wanted to learn how to do it, which I never could have pulled off. So that's the purpose of delegation, is you learn how to teach others how to do this. It takes burdens off of your shoulders, and it also teaches others how to do this as well. I think there's a great principle there, and I know that's a true principle. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sharing these messages. We love that you do that. Please go check out our amazingly comfortable gospel-themed socks at BOM-BITES.com. Godspeed, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.